Right guys, we are actually here, finally back at the unit. Got the Civic. We got back last night at 3:30. It was a long day of travelling, but it was worth it to get this absolute honey. So this is my first walk around look of the car. I've not really looked at it properly other than what I did last night, but it was getting late, I was tired, I really couldn't be arsed. So here we go. First impressions. Yep, it's an engine. It's a D16Y8. Yeah. Battery, obviously fitted securely. The best fitted HIDs I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, that engine is not staying in here. That's getting evicted straight away. Now, I got this car off a young lad called Kristen, and I mean, he could have cleaned it. And these pedals, boys. Absolute units. It's got a one of them removable glove boxes, you know what I mean? Just in case you need it on back seats. Stereo fitted securely. Oh, they're the original. Okay, they're going back in. Looks like someone's had some cornflakes. Nice. Scissors. I wonder what they were for. One of the things I do love about these EGs, the split boot. Ready? Oh, yeah. Amazing. I have bought this for the shell, right? This car has undergone a massive restoration with all the arches, all the seals have all been repaired and replaced. So rust-wise, this car is very, very clean. Now, all this other stuff is easily sorted. Keys. Yep, I've always wanted to do that. Are you ready, guys? So the fact that this had a dead engine in it meant that it was actually really cheap. Because all the bodywork's fine, and that's all been sorted. I mean, one of these with a good body, running engine, you're looking like £4 in today's market. It's pretty insane. But with this, with the dead engine, I paid 1,950 quid, which is still quite a lot for a 1993 Honda. And the project starts now. All right, guys, I am on with taking things out of here. First thing I noticed that was slightly strange is this radiator right here only had this very small amount of fluid in. Bearing in mind, that was full. So that's like, I don't know, half a litre. And then that is all that came out of there. So, yeah, there wasn't enough water in there. And this little baby, this little sensor controls the air-fuel ratio. Don't want to bore you. Pretty important. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's loose. So if that wasn't doing things correctly, there wasn't enough coolant in there, it could have been cooked, or the air fuel ratio could have been that far out because of the sensor just, yeah. I'm not surprised this thing's dead, honestly. Alright, so I've taken all the coolant pipes off all those red hoses, because everything that I can sell off this is just going to go straight back in to the build. So I'm moving over here now, I'm going to get the battery and all that out of the way. Alright, so plenty of progress. All I've got to do now is undo this mount here and this mount there. There was one going that way, that's off and gone. That back one's undone, so she's a bit of a rocker now. Fuel line's off. Power steering stuff's off, manifold's off, everything's off. I've even done the linkages. So now I need to get the engine crane to hold the weight while we pull these two pins out, and then that should be it. This engine should be out of here. The engine is out of here. Now I'm going to do a few jobs that I want to do just to tidy up the engine bay, make it look fresh, nice and all that sort of stuff. With the case swap, I'm pretty sure I need to drill out the spot welds and take that mount completely out for the new one. And the EG is clean. I didn't want to do anything else until I gave this thing at least a bit of a jet wash off. This thing was absolutely filthy, and it's really come out nice in this fresh pink colour. We have a parts delivery. In the micro, we have another engine. This bad boy is a twin engine for the day. Fits in just right. it was quite funny driving the Micra. It felt like I was literally driving with an anchor behind me. This thing does not like having an engine in there, but we've got a load of other goodies in there, so I'm going to get it all out now, line it all up and see what we've got. Alright guys, so I've got quite a lot of the parts here already. Engine, drive shafts, mounts, radiator pipes, flywheel. Another good thing about this engine, it's got the hydraulic pump on it, which is really good because I'm going to make some lines off this hydraulic rack. So that's all usable. I have actually bought a gearbox as well. It's on the way. And I've also got all the braided lines, so I'm just waiting for them to be delivered. This mount is now out of here. It was a bit of a pain to get out. The hardest part was there's like a spot weld right at the back here, which I couldn't get out with a drill, so I had to sort of chisel that and get it out of the way. But this is the new mount, and it sits, I'm not 100% sure yet, to be honest, but it sits something like in there, like that. Something like that. But what I'm going to do, they've come with like a bolt kit to bolt it in, but I'm not going to bolt it in. I'm going to clean all this up to bare metal and we're going to just weld it in. So what I'll do is get all the other mounts in, get the engine and box in, and then once they're all in and it's sat nice, I will then adjust this to sit perfect with all that, and then when this is all sitting perfect, we'll just tack it on, take it all out, and then we'll weld all this in properly. Okay, so we are somewhat above. I think we just need to go down slowly, and then as it goes down,
we definitely should go your way a bit.
Towards me. If any,
I'm looking at this mount this side.
Okay, my side looks kind of alright.
You're quite high off it, that's the issue.
Yeah, true. It is somewhat scary having this balancing above. Oh my god. Yeah, we've I need to stop recording and actually help. Alright, so progress from inside the engine bay. I want to fill all these holes, and this is what I've been doing. So I've welded, filled up most of them and then smoothed them off, and then I'm going to go over it with a bit of filler and then sand that down to make it look a bit more prettier. And some more to do here. Alright guys, so I'm on with the next job. I need to remove these old radiator mounts. These ones were for the aircon radiator, so I need to get all of them removed, and I have my radiator and I need to put the mounts where these two are. Okay, so I got all these brackets removed, and I've got the old ones that I'm going to just put in the new homes where these lines are. So that one's going to go there, and this one, well, there is a bit of an angle, but it shouldn't matter too much. So I'm going to get them tacked on now and then test fit the radiator. Alright guys, so this is where we're at. I've welded in all of these holes, and I've done most of the holes on this side. There's still a couple more to do. We have progress on the EG. I've sanded down all these welds, so this is nice and flat, ready for a skim of filler, just a little bit, just to fill in any of these tiny little pinholes, and then we can paint this, and the radiator is mounted properly, which I'm super happy about. These are just some EP3 little top brackets, and I've just bent them a little bit further so they line up, and then I've just used some stainless steel bolts and washers. Okay, so I'm pretty sure all the welding has come to an end. I've cleaned up and filled all the holes that I think I want to fill. I don't think there's any more to do. I've kind of got 3 different stages of how I'm doing things, so I'll give you a close-up and just explain what I'm doing. Okay, so this is like stage 1. It's got primer on with the first bit of filler on, and then I'm sanding that back so you can see like the bare metal there and what little bits of filler I've put on. I'm trying to use as little filler as possible. Then once that's done, paint it again with primer, and then any other final bits of sort of pinprick holes and stuff that I want to cover over, give it a second filler, and once that's done, the third stage, which is my favourite stage because it's finished. Once that final second layer of filler is on and sanded down, give it a final coat of paint. Alright, so it is now the next day and this thing looks so much better, so much shinier, so much glossier. I'm definitely glad that I've put that extra lacquer all over here. Headlights are on, both sides. Both wings are on. I've got the bonnet on with my bonnet stay for now, because I think the other one's down there somewhere. I've got my washer bottle on. I've even got the battery and the fuse box in. I'm actually probably going to put the arch liners on next. I've also, I don't know if I showed this in one of the last videos, but I've got the front flexies all in, front braided flexies. And I've actually renewed the sliders and boots because they were like seized in. So I've took them out, cleaned them all down, greased them up, put them back in. The braided brake lines in the engine bay are finished. Got the rear one plumbed through into the bulkhead. I'll sort all of the inside once I get the car off the ramp and on the wheels, because there's not much room to open the doors right now, but the work is about to begin. I need to take the rocker cover off first, and then I need to get these pulleys and stuff out of the way to get this timing cover pulled off, and then eventually the sump. So let's get cracking. So the pulley's off, the mount's off, rocker cover's off, and it actually looks very clean and healthy in here. It's not full of like sludge and very, very dark, like it's not had many oil changes, but it looks pretty healthy so far. So what I need to do now, lift it in the air so I can get to the bottom of all these sump bolts, because the whole sump needs to come off. All right, so I've got the timing cover off, and the first thing you want to do is set to top dead center. See that arrow pointing to that arrow, and these two lines meet, and these two little dots at the top. So when I take this tensioner off, everything is in the correct place, and as long as I don't move or touch anything, when I put the tensioner back on and let the tension back onto the sliders, it should be fine and everything should be in the right place. But I need to take this chain off to get to the oil pump chain, this back one. That's the one I'm changing, and the tensioner here and that guide. But next thing I need to do, get the sump off and then crack on with all of that. The sump is off and all of this is getting removed for the K20 pump, but first I'm going to take all the chain off and this chain here off. The old pump is off and the new pump is here. You can see by the size difference, that thing's crazy big, and this is a lot smaller. But the K20 pump, the oil pressure you can run a lot higher, and that's why you can rev the engine higher and get more power. So we're going to have to cut out a little groove across here, but I'm going to put it up to the engine and then somewhat draw around it. Yeah. See how this side here, it dips right down, whereas the K20 one's flat. So we just need to grind some of that away so it fits. One of the things you've got to do that's pretty much the most important part is there's a little plug here that goes onto the old pump here, where the oil drains back in there into the pump. But with the K20 one, we don't have that. So we have to block that off. And the way to get these off is tap a little screw in it. You can see it's just starting to spin, and then you just gently pull it out. And that's all it is. And that little hole drops oil out through there. So what we're going to do, take that out, get rid of it. It's actually threaded in there with an M8 bolt. So I'm going to seal all that up and basically bung it. And the reason we do this is because if we don't, the oil pressure won't be as high. And if it's not as high, then you can...
But you have no oil pressure.
You can kill the engine. So we'll have to block this. Just get that nicely covered. I've probably got more on me than I have on this bolt. That should do. That should do. Where am I? Over here. I think. Job done. What was that? What was that? More oil pressure? Yes, please.
It doesn't fit.
Yeah, goes like that. Really, we really should have bought an engine stand, but because we're tight and we've got an engine crane, we thought, we'll just do it on the floor.
We're tight, you mean he's tight.
We'll do it on the floor. Hey, I've got bills. So we actually had to cut a lot more than I really wanted. I did not want to get close to that, but it's still pretty much significantly attached to there. It's not just like a little edge on the back. For that to fit in fully, before it just wouldn't butt up. And you see that little bit on the engine? We had to just keep grinding it back until it fit perfectly flush. The pump is on, and the tensioner and the guide is all good. Cams have arrived, so we can finish this. First thing, take all these sort of brackets that hold all the cams on off the top, but they need to stay in order, so I'll lay them out. The old cams are out, the new are ready to go in. You can kind of tell the lobe size difference when you look really carefully, but it's really hard to see on the camera. All right, so now that I've got the cams in and the cam cover caps, or whatever you want to call them, need to torque it down. 16 foot-pounds is what these are, if anyone's wondering. That is the spec, and then that little 10's like 8 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna get this knocked out now. All right, so everything is timed up and the chain is fully back on. You can see here, these two lines meet up. The two little dots here, there's like 2 black links on the chain, and that dot goes in between 2. So as long as you got that right at the top and those lines meet, you can't really go wrong. Okay guys, the engine is pretty much back together. All the auxiliaries on. I've given it a fresh lick of paint just to make it look a little bit better before I put it on. All right guys, big progress. The sump is painted and is now sealed on properly. The clutch and flywheel are all on and fitted, and the gearbox has been cleaned up, painted, and the mounts are finally on. The engine is now in, I'm not going to say that. Finally, the engine is in the Civic. And I've done quite a bit of progress, did some last night. Obviously, the engine's in. I've put the radiator in. I've done the gear linkages. I've done the clutch line. I've actually put one of the new coilovers on, and the first drive shaft is in. All right, guys, we are back working on the Civic of Dreams. This thing is going swimmingly. I've got my new K-swapped harness that I need to start putting all together. I'm going to show you basically what I'm doing, so you know what I'm doing. So I've got sort of 2 looms on the outside here that connect to all the sort of headlights, horn, washer pump from that side. But what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and like tuck it out of the way so it's neat and tidy. So originally they do run over the strut top tower here and come round. So this side's exposed in a minute, but this side over here I've kind of tucked it around the wing, so I'll kind of show you what I mean. So before, the loom came over here and down here and round to the headlights, but as you can see in here, it's all plugged in. But what I've done is basically I've just run the loom behind the wing, but sort of it goes underneath the wing, but over the top of the arch liner, so it's like weatherproof. It's not going to get wet or anything. So wiring wise, this is how the engine bay is going to look for the headlight stuff, because that all plugs into there, and I've earthed it behind, so it's all like out of view, out of sight, and you know, I think it looks a lot nicer like that. Progress has been made. I've put the new coilover in that side. I've painted the cleaned it off as best I could with my wheel, clean it off, put it in, and I have a drive shaft. That is a nice shaft. And this middle piece here is off a K20 EP3, so if anyone's wondering, you don't use the K24 middle shaft, use a K20 to match the K20 gearbox. Okay, so onto the wiring. This is where I've drilled through, and it goes behind this wing, and then if you look under here, I don't know if you can see, and that's where it comes out there. So it's going to go over the top of the wheel arch. So at the moment, I'm wrapping up all this wiring to protect it, because that's literally how it was. It probably wasn't like this from factory, but so I'm going to put some tape over it just to protect it, and then get all these plugged in. All right, so I know it doesn't look like much has changed, but the brake pedal is now on, fitted properly to the booster. All the wiring around the back for the new loom, that's all on and done. I've got rid of them horrible pedals. They're off. All clutch line is done. Brake line is on. All I need to do now is sort out all the wiring for this side. But all right, a lot of progress has been made. The engine loom is all on and ready to go. I've had to sort out some plugs here and put some new ones on to fit the throttle body, so that's all done. It's just going to run along here, down, and through the bulkhead. I've sorted it all out where the cables and the harness go through together. I've sorted out the coolant pipes for the heating matrix, so for the blowers inside the car, I just need to Jubilee clip them on. I've sorted the hose that goes from the intake manifold to the brake booster, because without this, you have no brakes, because it uses the vacuum to help things. So that's where we're at. I've obviously got this cable done. The only thing I need to do now to finish the engine bay harness is get these cables and then run it along the wing down here to meet them two, because that's where that's all going to sit and stay. Got the shifter. It is a standard DC5 shifter. It's actually a spare off of Luke's old setup that he had. He's got a different shifter now, but I'm going to be using that because it's cheaper, cheerful, and it'll do the job. So I've marked out these holes where I'm going to be drilling. I was thinking about just like riv knotting them and then just screwing into that, but because it's quite thin, I'm not sure how long that will hold up over time. So what I'm going to do is drill holes and literally nut and bolt it and put washers on the other side, so there's more surface area that it's going to hold on to, and hopefully that will stay stronger for longer. The shifter is in, and for the first time I can change gears. It does go through all the gears all right. In fact, I'm lying to you. 5th, 6th, it's just reverse. But on the other side of this linkage on the gearbox side, there's loads of threads visible there, so I think I just need to wind it in a bit. It can almost get it, but I just think I need to tighten that up on the gearbox. For now, shifter wise, we're done. So, working on the rear brakes and the bias valve, I've put inside the armrest, like cubbyhole, whatever you want to call it. I said this a while ago that I wanted to somehow put this in there, and it's happening. Hole there for the line from the front, hole there to go out towards the back brakes, but I am super happy with how that's worked out. That's the line coming from the bulkhead, the front line, and then it goes to my armrest with my little pocket, and then both cables bolt in through there. And then this one I've actually got loads of play with. Goes to the back here. I've stripped everything out, and I just need to drill 2 little holes through like the arches, and then just loop these through, and then it'll bolt on to where the flexies were. I've also finished putting my brake lines through and I've undersealed all of the back of here, so everything looks nice and fresh. Now back working on the interior. I've managed to get all the carpet back in. I've put the plastics in. The center console, the armrest is all in fitted. It's got the bias valve in there, which is nice and neat. I've got all the wiring to sort out inside, but most of this is plug and play. I just need to somehow mount the ECU up there somewhere and then plug it all in. And there's a couple of wires I need to tap into to make all the clusters and stuff work on the Speedo. All right, so moving on, I am relocating my power steering pump to the bottom, and I've got the billet piece all bolted up there, and it looks all fancy and nice. So I just need to bolt this on to there. Well, there you are. Now, it doesn't look like it lines up right there because it doesn't. There's 2 little spaces. Those 2 little spaces there will go on. So that'll sit like further out, so it'll all line up. But that's what I'm on with now. So I'll get that bolted up, and then I'll play with these lines and then get it all plumbed in, and then we should have power steering on the EG. I am on with the next job of mounting this power steering pump reservoir. So the pump's down there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this on the side there. Alright, so my little bracket is done. I've even given it a lick of paint to stop it from rusting, because it is obviously bare metal. And this is my reservoir. And that just slots in there, because it's tapered, it just sits snug. So that goes there, and then this factory pipe will just go in the bottom of there, really nice and neat. And then I need to align from here, so here to the rack, and then the return will go into that little bung there. Alright, so all the reservoir is on, bolted on, and clears everything really nice. The power steering lines are completely finished. The cables run around there, and then just follow here. The one that goes back to the tank goes along the chassis leg into there, and then it's the bottom one that comes out of the pump itself, that braided one. That's the high pressure. So that's all finished. And moving on into the engine bay, the rock cover is all painted and on. This thing is looking really nice. It's like crackle black. More progress. I've got a throttle body. I've just taken all the sensors off, cleaned it off, and given it a lick of paint. Alright, so the throttle body is on, all the sensors plugged in, and the factory cable from the old engine actually fits and works. I've managed to adjust it, and with the pedal I can open the throttle to 100% and then it goes all the way back to how it sits on idle. So really pleased with how that's come out, and really happy that I can use that stock cable, which means I just don't have to buy anything else. All I need to do is get a sort of air filter and pipe, but we'll sort that out. That'll be one of the last things I do. The wiring is now finished. I've made a new earth, put a new connector on there, and the power cable is going from here all the way down to the alternator and starter motor all on, and I've connected the battery up, so in theory it should now crank over. Obviously we're not going to start it because there's still no fuel, but if we can crank it then that's a good sign. So Luke is in the car right now somewhere, and we're going to just try and crank it for the first time and see if it works. So the Civic turns over for the first time with a new engine and setup. It's always a bit nervous when you change the car this much to hear it first crank over. The only reason it's not fired up is because I haven't finished the fuel lines yet. Alright, back at it on the Civic. I am currently doing all the fuel lines, but while I'm here, I don't know if I've showed you guys yet, but all the under seal is now on and done. It took me a few days just to wire brush all of that crap off, but now it's looking fresh. So I'm going to crack on putting the fuel lines on front to back. Progress on the fuel lines and all the underneath of the car, the fuel lines have done, including this fuel filter that I've put in that could be changed in and out at any time once it needs replacing, but it's all pretty much done underneath. Progress on the fuel lines, so I've got the feed from the tank to the rail all sorted, that's on. Now I've got a return from the rail coming down here to the regulator. So what I'm going to do now is I need to put another piece coming off the regulator to return back to the fuel tank, and then when it's on, all you do is you crack this nut off and then you adjust this like center bolt, and that controls the pressure. And on the rail I've got my gauge, so these K series sort of between I think 50 to 60 psi it wants to sit at. Alright guys, on to the next thing of the EEG. I need to sort out some wiring stuff. One of the things I've just sorted is the temperature gauge for inside the cluster. Basically, on the loom that I've got now, the engine ECU reads off the factory coolant temperature sensor that's in the block. But for me to have one inside the car to read with the dash, I've had to basically put one in. So what I've done now is I've wired one in, and if I show you where it is, it goes in my little coolant block there. So technically I've got two, one there that the ECU reads off, and this one so that I can have it on my dash so I can actually see what the temperature of the car is. So if I and obviously it's not running anything, but if I warm this up and have a look in the dash, we should be able to see it working, hopefully. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is this fan switch. Now the switch is that goes in the bottom of the radiator, and this works with the ECU to tell the fan basically to turn on and off when it hits temperature. So I need to run a cable from in here all the way outside the front to the radiator. So what I'm going to do is go along behind the back of the wing like the other loom is, and yeah, get this working. So I'll fast forward to that point. Okay, so there's the fan switch all wired in. I'm not really going to show you very well, but it all goes up and it's nicely hidden and tucked out of the way, so that's done. The only other thing I need to do is wire in the actual fan, but I've run out of wire, but I only need to go from there to the top of the wing. The engine swap is nearly done. If you don't know, this was originally a 1.5 litre and now it's 2.4. Bit of a frank build. It's got a lot of the K20 parts in this engine as well, so this should be quite an eventful car when it's done, and hopefully today is going to be the day that I'm going to fire up for the first time. Let's crack on and get this thing going. Okay, so the first thing I've got to do is fit this little barbed piece to my fuel line here. In theory, you don't need Jubilees because the barbed fittings have got sharp edges, so it should never come loose, but I'm going to put Jubilees on them just in case. So I'm going to get that on, and then fuel line wise, that is completely finished. Okay, that's the fuel line fitted. I know it doesn't look the prettiest, but so that's done. I can put all that back together and move on to the next job. All right, so on to the next job. I've put the injectors in. I do need to change the plugs on these. These are the new ones that fit those injectors, and so I'm gonna have to basically de-pin them and put them into there, and then I can plug them in. Looking a lot neater and all tucked out of the way. The next thing I need to sort out is these little spaces, but I might have to buy some bit of metal that'll fit. I've kind of got, this is my idea, like a hollow sort of tube, and I can cut that down to size. But this is the only bit of hollow tube I've got that's like the right size. So I'm gonna have a dig around, see what I can find with some of the stuff we've got here at the unit. But that might be the thing that holds me back right now. So I found these little bits of metal that I'm gonna use for my spacers. I've just cleaned that one up. I'm gonna clean this one up next, and then I'm gonna cut them down to size. But they should really do the trick, and they're nice and thick as well. So there's gonna be more than strong enough for what I need. Alright, so I've got my spacers on. I've test fitted them. The gap for the injectors looks okay. It all looks sat right. I mean, until I put fuel in it and there's pressure and we see a leak, we're never going to know if it's 100% okay. But alright, so next job I've got to do is get one of these exhaust sensors to the outside of the car. I know this all looks like spaghetti at the minute, but once I get this tidied up and that sensor outside, this will look neater, and I'll be able to plug it in on the exhaust. There's oil in it. Injectors are on, we've primed it, there's fuel pressure, there was a leak, we sorted the leak, I just didn't tighten up one of the fittings. Now it should turn over.
Oh fuck me, that starts up and runs alright.
That is quiet, is the pressure okay?
Bit low, but we're good.
We need to adjust the regulator, but we can't really sort it out until it's running, but it's running like, this is the first time we've tried it, and
Legit the first time we tried it.
it's not freezing out.
Bear in mind it hasn't got an exhaust on it at the moment.
Just the manifold.
This is temporary, don't worry.
But like before, because obviously we don't know what map is on it from the ECU. It said it was a 2.4. I don't know what injectors it had, but it's running really smooth. But yeah, this, I need to get a bung for a coolant pipe. That's why we put it on there. And that's just my overflow for now. But
yeah, we just need to adjust the pressure slightly to about 50, 55. We're about 42 now, or something like that. But it's running good. I
can't believe it started first time so easy like that. I mean, we did prime the fuel, so the fuel was ready. But it was mainly the map on the ECU that I was worried about. But
good morning. Today is the day we're getting the Civic on the dyno. What power will she make? It is currently 6 in the morning and I've got a 2-hour drive, so I shall see you guys when we get there.
Today, oh my god, what a mix of emotions. I went from happy in the morning to very sad, depressed in the middle of the day. Then I managed to fix the Honda and I was happy again. Safe to say, when I actually got there in the end, because you're about to see I did actually get there, I didn't record, like, I recorded pulls and stuff, but I didn't record like an intro or anything because I was so late and I was just like, oh my god, let's get the car in and get it sorted. But I've just got home and I've definitely had my fill of anxiety for the day, and I'm just eating some Jaffa cakes and chilling out. So enjoy the rest of the video. If you think anyone might enjoy it, please share it with them because it will help me out massively. And I will see you in the next endeavour.